we had no idea what we were getting into, which is probably good, or we probably actually never would have tried it.
Welcome to the More Sunsets Please podcast. Have you ever wondered what it would be like to live debt-free, sell it all and live small, travel the country full-time, or raising animals and growing your own food as a sustainable family? My name is Kate, and these are just some of the stories of those who have jumped outside the box and living life on their terms. This is More Sunsets Please. Thank you, Brenda, for being here for the More Sunsets Please podcast. I'm so happy to have you here.
I am happy to be here. I'm happy to finally actually get to talk to you and meet you.
Yes. And chat and learn a little bit more.
Yes.
This will be really good. So we start off with everyone. Where are you right now?
I am in Texas, and I'm in South Central Texas. So I'm between San Antonio and Austin.
Okay. All right. So you have a little bit of a different story. Most that we've talked to have been travelers, have explored all over, whereas your story is more, you've lived so many different ways and have decided this is it. You found your path. Can you just give us a little bit of a backstory of where you guys started and how you got to where you are now?
Sure. So when my husband and I got married, actually, I was living in a condo, like a third floor walk up in Denver, not downtown, but within the city limits. And so that's kind of where we started. And not too long after that, probably about 7 or 8 months, we moved to Arizona and we moved into the suburbs, into a suburban house. And it wasn't too bad, except the yards were pretty small. And we were in Arizona for a few years, and I did not like the desert. I grew up in Northeast Ohio, and it's very cloudy there, but it's green. And we get seasons and things like that. And so I had to go home back to Ohio for my grandpa's funeral a few years ago. And it was fall, and the leaves had all changed, and it had rained a lot. So everything was really green, and it just made me homesick. Not for Ohio. I did not miss Ohio, but just for grass and, for all that stuff. And, I came back and told my husband, I'm like, Arizona, it's beautiful at times, but it's brown. And then they paint all the houses brown. And it's just, it just was not my cup of tea. And we had both always kind of had a desire to move to Texas. And so he started applying to jobs, and we figured if it's meant to be, he'll find a job. And he actually got a job offer within 3 weeks, which is incredible. I work in HR, so I know how long the hiring process usually is. And I had told him that. I was like, this could take 4 or 6 months when you're trying to relocate to another state, to get a job. It's hard. And so it was definitely God's doing to get us out here. And so when we came out here, again, we just went straight to the suburbs and got what we thought, a big fancy house that we wanted, and moved into that and lived in that for a few years. And it was really a bigger house than we needed. We have one child, and we were in 2,700 square feet, which was kind of nice during the lockdowns because we built a home gym and everybody had their own space and stuff like that. But after a while, I was like, cannot keep up with cleaning this house. We didn't spend a lot of time together as a family because we were always in our separate areas of the house. And then, our son would be like, can we play? And we're like, well, no, we've got to clean. We've got to do yard work. We've got to do all this kind of stuff. And he was littler, so it wasn't stuff that he could really help out with yet. And so my husband kept saying, he kept feeling really guilty, feeling like we were living more extravagantly than we should have. And, it's not and we don't live extravagantly. I mean, we don't have a lot of money. We don't by any means. But he just felt like we're in this big house that we don't need. This isn't right kind of thing. And then when the mandates were looking like they were going to go into effect, there was a good possibility, had those gone in effect, that he was going to lose his job. So, the market was high, and we just felt like to be proactive. Some of it was out of fear that we acted. But sometimes I think that's good because it pushes us to get out of our comfort zone a lot faster. My husband's not real open to change. And so had he not had that fear, I don't think the rest of our journey would have ever happened. We would have just stayed in that house and done whatever. But, we had that fear. We wanted to get ahead of it. And so neither of us had ever been in an RV before. We went one day RV shopping. We looked at, a bunch of them. We found one we liked. We put a payment down on it and went home and called our realtor and said, we need to get our house on the market. Most people prepare for RV life for like months or years, and we just went and did it. And then we were like, oh, okay. So it was a little bit of a hassle selling our house. The first buyer didn't work out and we had to go back on the market. And so that was kind of stressful. But once we got out of that and we were in the RV for 10 months. We were in 2 different RVs. We tried 2 different RVs to try and make it work. And ultimately it was not a good fit for us for many reasons. But, mainly we did it, like I said, out of fear, but also to save money. And we weren't really saving that much money by the time we, added up everything with insurance and storage units and things like that. Our electric bill in Texas in an RV was insane. It was like $230 a month. And we kept our RV on 82. Like, it's not like we were cool,
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So, it was just wasn't saving us much money. And so, when we had gone into the RV, initially we were like, well, we'll do this for a few years and then we'll buy some land and throw a double wide on it or something and, kind of get out in the country and find more simplicity. I think that really was our goal all along, was to just get out of the rat race of suburbia and always trying to keep up with everybody and feeling like you never have enough and, whatever. We just wanted more simplicity in our life. And so we thought going the RV route would be that way. But since you live in an RV, it's not really that simple. And things break and like
there's always something something to be fixed.
There is always something to worry about. And so it didn't end up being quite as simple as we had hoped. And nothing is ever going to be truly simple, but I guess it's, and I said this when I was dating, like everybody that you date, everybody has some sort of crazy, right? Like everybody's crazy in their own way. It's whose crazy can you live with,
Yeah.
So it's kind of like that with life. Every lifestyle has its challenges, but what are the challenges that are going to be okay for you? What kind of challenges are you willing to accept? So, we wanted to go more of the just let's be on our own land and just be doing our own thing and not have people bothering us kind of route. And the RV thing wasn't working out. And when we started looking, prices were still very high. And in Texas, I think they're pretty much always going to be high. It's just a place where people are fleeing to at this point. And land is especially like crazy. People pay close to 80, 90 grand an acre for land, unless you want to go out west. Then you can get it pretty cheap, but then you're in the desert again and you can't grow anything. And so after doing some research, I was like, we have these lofty goals of buying 5-10 acres. I said, honestly, like financially, it's not going to happen unless somebody sends us a lot of money. Like it's just financially out of our reach at this point. There's probably some sacrifices we could have made. I could go back to work full time, put our son in school, and we could have a lot more money and save a lot more money, but it's not worth it, to me or to my husband. So, based on what we're working with financially, big plot of land, building a house or whatever, not feasible. So what can we afford and how can we get into the lifestyle that we're wanting to be in? And so when I started looking around where we live, where my husband's job is, there's a lot of double wides or a lot, on like half an acre. And that's pretty much all you find are double wides on those kind of plots around here. And I don't have any problems with living in a double wide. But we lived in an RV. It's a trailer's a trailer, a double wide's kind of like a fancy trailer.
Yeah. Look at your oven. I'm oven envy.
I mean, that I picked out myself though. But yeah, so I said, it took a little bit of convincing on his part. I think and my dad has lived in double wides too, several double wides. So it's not that weird to me. My husband, it was a little bit of a new concept to him, but after we started looking and like, this is what we can afford, this is what we can find, then that's kind of the route we started seeking, was trying to find a half acre, an acre or whatever with a decent double wide on it. And then what can we do from there? So it took us a couple months and we looked at some interesting properties, and we had one that didn't work out. We went under contract on it, did the home inspection, and it was a flip property. And whoever had flipped it had no idea what they were doing. I mean, the house itself was off level by 4 inches. So
That's insane.
It wasn't level. When you flushed the toilet in the master bathroom, water came up the shower drain. I mean,
I'm no plumber, but I don't think that's a good thing.
No. I mean, it was so bad. It was so bad. Like our realtor's in his 70s, and he is like, this is the worst inspection report I've ever seen on a property. I mean, it was so bad. And so we walked away from that one. And it's funny because the agent came to our agent and he's like, what can we do for your people to want to buy this? And he's like nothing. Like you'd have to redo the whole thing. Yeah.
Tear it down.
And it was only on 0.4 acres. So we weren't terribly heartbroken, and this property that we're on now, we're on 1.1 acres, and we had looked at it previous to that one, but it is in a flood zone. And so they gave us like a flood zone insurance quote, and it was super high. And so we were like, well, we can't, we're not going to pay that insurance on top of everything. It was like $400 or $500 a month. I mean, I'm not going to pay that in insurance.
No.
So, and we knew this would be a project, this one, because it was built in 1998. It does have a really nice, the room I'm in was an addition, a master suite addition that the previous owner had built a few years ago. So this part of the house was nice and modern. The rest of it had not been updated since 1998, like wallpaper and
everything from the 90s is coming back.
Yeah,
so your house could be cool too.
Yeah. So, but the property is beautiful. We've got 4 empty acres behind us. We've got an empty acre next to us. So we only have one neighbor, and it's a super sweet little old lady. Like it was we've got a ton of trees, and it's almost like a pie-shaped property. And so it sits back far from the street. There's a lot of privacy. The property itself was just gorgeous. And so we kept looking, and something, probably the Holy Spirit, something prompted me to say, let's look into this flood insurance a little bit more. Like, let's try and get some other quotes. I don't want to write that one off because something about that one just felt like home to me. Right. So we did some more research, found a different company, and the flood insurance ended up actually being pretty cheap. So it all worked out, thankfully. So now we are here on our 1.1 acres in our 1990s double wide that we're trying to bring into the 21st century. And we're starting to build our homestead.
That's amazing. And how long have you been there now?
We have been here 5 months, I think. It was the end of August is when we moved in, beginning of September. So yeah, I think about 5 months.
Baby homesteaders.
Yes. Yeah. And we didn't grow up. Neither of us grew up homesteaders. I mean, my husband grew up in the suburbs of Denver. I actually grew up in Amish country in Ohio, but, we weren't homesteaders. Like we lived in town, and I tried a garden one year. It was a complete fail. And that was about it.
I swear that gardening is one of those that everybody can do and will eventually be able to do, just in their right season. I know for myself, I couldn't grow a single thing outside ever. And I killed every plant that came inside the house until one day I got a plant that didn't die. And then suddenly I blinked and there was like 500 plants in my house that just kept propagating somehow magically.
Yeah.
But I feel like that was meant to be my season to learn, that it just came to me. Right. And I think that's the same for many homesteaders or people who want to get into farm life or growing their own food, whether it's in their backyard of suburbia or on 300 acres, that most of them came from not a green thumb background, that it was at the right time. And it sounds like it was much like this for you too.
We'll see. I haven't started a garden yet, so we'll see. But I am going to do raised beds. When I was little and I tried a garden, I did try to do it in the ground. My grandma came and helped me because my grandma and grandpa always had a garden. You know, they were first generation Italians in this country, and so that was just what they did. And they were pretty good at keeping, you know, a little garden. Though it's a funny memory. After my husband and I got engaged and he came back to Ohio with me one time, we went to my grandpa's house and my grandpa was showing him his garden. And he's like, yeah, I plant garlic around the border to keep the bunnies out. And we look over and there's like 2 bunnies in the middle of the garden. We're like, yeah, doesn't really work, but it's cute that you think that.
Good in concept.
Yeah, you know, they probably just jump right over it. So my grandma had come out when I was little to help me put my garden down, you know, and I'm sure part of it, I was like 9 or 10, I think. I'm sure I didn't water it properly, but I still, in general, I know it's very hard to grow things in the ground. And so, especially in Texas, I'm not even going to attempt that. The ground is so hard. So we'll see. And I think I'm definitely going to, it's hard not to start small. I want to just like do all the things, but I think my first year, I need to make sure that I'm starting small so that I can learn and I don't get too frustrated. And then, you know, I mean, you know, it's hard because I think sometimes we feel this urgency looking at what's going on around us in the world. Like, I've got to get all this stuff like figured out now and I got to get it done and get ready. But at the same time, we've been saying that for a few years now, you know, so hopefully there's still a few years or decades or whatever that before, you know, stuff hits the fan, that we don't really have to worry about being totally self-sufficient. And it's, I think it's almost impossible to be totally self-sufficient unless you do have 300 acres and you have cows, you know, and everything already on there. So ours is more help. Yeah. And you have help for sure.
No one single farm can do everything. It still is a team effort.
Yeah. So, you know, our goal, it's fun learning. I mean, we're really having a lot of fun learning. You know, we have the chickens and the ducks right now, except our ducks are dudes, but we're going to get that. Like, just the luck of it. Like, we just happen to get ducks. And it's funny because we got full grown ducks. It's not like we started with little ducklings and like, well, they just turned out to be. We got our birds from a friend of ours who's in our homeschool group, and she sent her kids to get ducks, and she didn't specify and didn't really pay attention. She just said, go catch 2 ducks. And so they caught 2 ducks, and they both just happened to be males. So
that's funny.
We're going to swap one out this weekend. We're going to take her a male and she's going to give us a female. And then after she breeds some in the spring and gets some more, then, because you have to have 2 ducks together. You can't just have 1 duck. They need a pal, I guess. So then after she gets some more full grown females, then she'll give us another female and swap it out. So it's, so we've got, right now we've got the 3 chickens. We're going to get 1 more chicken and then the 2 dude ducks that were pretty much just duck sitting at this point. Oh, they're funny though. Ducks are pretty entertaining. They don't like us. As soon as we go near, no. as soon as we go near the pen, like they freak out and they start going the opposite direction. And it's funny when we're both in there because they try to get away from both of us and they're like ducking and dodging, and yeah, it's pretty funny.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. That's crazy. So you guys have 1.1 acres in the outskirts of Central Texas, and you got a couple chickens, you got a pair of dude ducks, a couple of dogs, you got a kid, a husband, a wife,
2 cats,
2 cats, and probably some stray squirrels. What are you hoping to achieve with your little homestead? Where do you picture this going? Because I know you said this is just you're starting small. What is your grand dream and goal with this big change?
I don't know. And I guess I've kind of learned our lives have changed so much just in the last year and a half, or you could even say 3 years or 8 years, that we've been married. It's hard to really plan ahead because I've seen how much life can change in 4 or 5 months, I think more than anything, I'm just trying to enjoy where we're at, the learning process of it. I mean, we do have high hopes of buying the lot next door if it ever comes up for sale. I don't know if it'll ever come for sale because given the story we've learned about the guy who owns it, like he's out of sight, out of mind, doesn't really care. I've thought about just going in with an offer and just saying, hey, this is what we'll give you for this land. It's not real. I think somebody could build on it. Again, it's part of the flood zone, so they would have to build up. I think it's even closer in the zone than we are. But it's got a lot of down trees. Like it needs work. So if somebody buys it, they're gonna have to put a lot of money into it. Whereas we would love it as is, and we could just, build a pole barn on it or whatever, and figure out how to use it the way it is. We wouldn't have to put a lot of money into it. So there are times when I've thought, well, if we get to a point where we have some money and we can just go make it, like, here's what we'll give you for it, and see. So I guess that's kind of a dream, is we'd love to buy that lot next to us and be able to expand some, and have about 2 acres. And I'd love to get donkeys. I love donkeys. They're super sweet. When we were in the RV park was next to a stable, and there were 2 donkeys that were always along the fence line that just loved us. We'd go over and we could stick our hands through the fence and pet them, and they were super sweet. And so I fell in love with donkeys. Aww. And they're supposed to be good alert animals too. Like they are good guardian animals. So, I've thought about goats maybe someday. I don't know what purpose they would serve unless we had milk goats, but from the research I've done, it's a lot of work. Any animal that you milk, you've got to be milking it a lot to keep it, producing milk. So I'm like, it'd be great. And I'd love to be able to sell goat milk because that stuff goes for like $17 a gallon. But do I want to spend a couple hours a day milking goats? Probably not.
Yeah.
Not at this stage in my life. So
Although
definitely
they'll clear that land really well.
Yes, they would. So, that's probably our dream at this point, is buying that lot. We asked about the lot behind us, but they will only sell the 4 acres, and it's crazy expensive. Like I don't have to worry about that ever getting sold because nobody's going to spend that much money because it's all woods. I mean, it's not developed at all. I don't think there's any utilities on it. But it's nice because we have woods behind us. Yeah. So that's nice. So I don't think we'd ever have that behind us. But if we could get next to us, we could expand a little bit, try some different animals. But for now, we're looking at expanding our chicken coop, building a bigger coop, and hopefully maybe in the fall, kind of doubling our flock and having, 7 or 8 chickens and maybe 3 or 4 ducks. So
I love that you guys are starting small, because there's so many that quick go get 30 acres and buy 500 chickens and 30 ducks, and they buy all the things the second they get there. And then they went from, sure, they did all the research, and then now they have all these animals, and they jump into so much work. and so much learning. Sure, it's trial by fire. You're going to learn real hard, real fast, but sometimes that risk is pretty large because you lose a lot of animals if you don't know what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So I love that you guys are starting slow and steady and starting small and really tailoring one skill as you go.
Yeah, I think we hopefully learned our lesson jumping into RV life the way we did, because we did no research. So we had no idea what we were getting into, which is probably good, or we probably actually never would have tried it. And we would never change that period in our time for anything. It got us to where we are now. I mean, with the way the market was, and even still is, it's not as easy to sell a house and buy another house immediately like it used to be. You sell your house, you may not find something. Or if you put an offer on a house, they might not want that contingency of your house selling. So by selling our house and being out of that, it put us in a good position that we could take our time to find what we wanted and not have to deal with that part of it. And it was good for us as a family. I mean, it was challenging at times, and there was a lot of fighting between everybody at times, but we also spent a lot of time together, and it was good for us overall, but we jumped into it and we had no idea what we were getting into, from any perspective. And so I think we kind of learned that. And so going into this, like, we didn't want to go too full speed into it and get all the things and try all the things at once. Because my husband works full time, and he also is in Bible college, and I work part time sometimes, and I have my own consulting business, and I homeschool, and so we just didn't want to we don't have that much time to do too much at this point either. So we didn't want to get over our heads and end up in another situation where we're like, what do we do? We're into something that we don't want to, we can't keep up with, we don't want to keep up with. So yeah, we're trying to baby step it, I think. And I think it's good. And part of it's just financially, like, we can only do so much. And so I think that's good too, because it's forcing us to pull the reins back and say, okay, let's master what we've got, figure it out. And, God's will always prevail. So if he wants us to have that lot next door, that lot will become ours. Like, I don't really stress about it, because if it's meant to be, it's such a cliche saying, but it is. Nothing, everything happens within God's will. So if that is part of his will for our lives, then it'll be part of our lives. And if he wills us to have donkeys, we'll have donkeys. If he doesn't, then we won't, but which is nice. It takes a lot of the stress off. Like, I'm trying to just take it one day at a time. Because like I said, so much changes for us in 6 months the past couple of years that I have no idea what 6 months could look like. I mean, nobody knows what the way the world's going.
No.
We'll still be here in 6 months, I mean, that climate change, it's going to wipe us out pretty soon.
Yeah. Between all my dog's farts and yeah, she's gonna kill the climate one gaseous release at a time.
That's why we have little dogs. They don't seem to fart as much. I don't know.
No, they don't. Our little dog is very quiet, but our big dog, I might as well have a cow. So through all these changes that you guys made along the way, from the north to the west to a house in suburbia to RV life, how did you know along the way that you were on the right path and that you needed to make those changes and that this is the right path now?
That's a good question. I mean, I guess it goes back to the sovereignty of God. Like, we just trust that God's will is perfect, and whatever season we're in, whatever we're doing, that's his perfect will for us at this point. And, I think there's definitely, that's not to say we don't make choices, but there's definitely prompting, from the Holy Spirit to do things. And I think, some of the changes we've made have been those promptings. And some of them, I think, is just, our own desires, and those, God already knows what we desire. So that, it's going to line up with his will anyway. And so, I think the changes that we've made, and as we've grown in our faith, we've sought different things that have led us here. I was thinking today, it's funny, 20 years ago, my dream was to live in New York City and work in the fashion industry. Believe it or not, as I sit here in my overalls and my flannel, like at one point in my 20s, I wanted nothing more than to live in New York City or LA and work in the fashion industry. And
how different is that?
Yeah. And I lived a very different lifestyle, and I had very different priorities. And when I look back on the last 20 years and I see how little bit by little bit I've changed, and how different decisions that I've made have gotten me to where I am, it definitely wasn't me, I don't think, for the most part, making that much of a 180 decision, with my life. And I wasn't a practicing believer back then either. I was living, like I said, a very different lifestyle. But, as I've grown in faith, and as I've matured and I've lived life, my priorities have changed. And now I'm so thankful that I'm not living in New York City, working in the fashion industry, for many reasons, and I'm very glad that God did not give me that desire that I had at that time. So I think that's important to think about too, is we have these goals and we have these desires as we go through life. And when they don't work out, we need to just trust that it is for our best interest in the long run. And so, we're on this path now, and I guess I know it's right because this is where God has us. And so I was talking to my friend in Kansas, and they moved there last summer because her husband's in the military. And so I hadn't talked to her for a while. So when last time I talked to her, we were still in the RV, and we talk on text and stuff like that, but we hadn't physically talked. And she's like, "You sound so happy." Like, she goes, it's weird. Like, you just sound so happy with, where you guys are and everything that's going on. And I said, honestly, I am. For the first time, I think, in my adult life, like, I feel like I'm where I'm supposed to be. And I don't know if that's because I grew up out in the country. Like, it just feels comfortable for me to be back out in the country. And when I tried to be a city girl or a suburb girl, like, it just wasn't a good fit for me, as much as I tried. I don't know, but I am extremely happy living here. And this place is a money pit for sure, and there's so much that we need to fix and things that we need to do. And, I can look around the yard and think, oh, there's this project and this project, but at the same time, like, I'm happy, Yeah. And I think, our son is happy. He's doing much better having, a whole acre to run around and play and ride his bike. And since we're nice and secluded, he can be out there doing those things, and I don't have to worry about him. There's a point on our driveway towards the street that we say, you can't go past this point if we're not outside with you. But other than that, he's got the rest of our whole property that he can run around and do whatever. And the dogs have all the space, and so, and my husband can go in the backyard and throw logs and do manly things like he likes to do. Like we, I can tell that everybody else is happier, and that makes me happier. And it just feels like home being here. I don't know how else to describe it.
Feels like home.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. A 1998 double wide. Not what I expected, to be the home that felt the most comfortable to me. But yeah, I mean, I grew up
New York fashion model to 98 double wide in the country.
Well, I didn't want to be a model. That was not my goal. I'm only 5'4", so I already knew that wasn't going to happen. And I'm Italian, so I'm a little too curvy. But yeah, I wanted to do like merchandising and designing and that kind of stuff. I loved clothes. Yeah. I loved, doing that kind of stuff. And now I'm like overalls and flannel. Like, if it's comfy, I'll wear it. If it's not comfy, I'm not wearing it anymore.
Yeah.
That's for your 20s.
Right? And
yeah.
It's true. We all have these, and people always ask us as kids, what's your dream? What do you want to be when you grow up? And all that pressure is on you, and you think, okay, yeah, this is what I'm going to be. This is what I'm going to do. And then for some of us, we get there, we go, ooh, this is not at all what I want to do. Now that I've
Mm-hmm.
lived life and done things, got out there in the world, and I'm not 6, no, this is
Right.
not what I want to do. And for some people, they're 18 and still don't know what they want to do because they haven't got out there in the world. And
Mm-hmm.
you did. You got out there, you went and ventured off, and now you've discovered what you actually want to do, and it feels like home. And it's so true, because once you get to that spot of this feels right, it's almost like your body releases the tension to go, okay, this is where I'm supposed to be. And for everyone, that's different.
Mm-hmm.
um, I don't think there's any two people that have the same spot that feels like home. That's why it's our home, not everybody's home.
Yeah.
That you can just release and relax. I had another conversation with Patty from Gills on Wheels, and for them, being able to go everywhere all the time is their release,
Mm-hmm.
because they can be where they want to be and just relax. Whereas for others like yourself, you get the seclusion, the comfort of the countryside, and that's your release. And
Mm-hmm.
I love that you've discovered that, and luckily while you're still very young.
Yes, I'll tell you, there's something about the country air because I feed my sourdough starter, and 2 or 3 hours later, it's ready. I mean, it's bubbling and ready to go. So there is
Yeah.
something good out in the country.
Yes, right. You try and do that sourdough in the city, and it's just flat.
Yeah,
It's
it's
flat.
amazing. I've got all these recipes.
I
It's
do.
like feed it 12 to 24 hours ahead of time. I'm like, I can't. It'll be flat again. I got to do it like 2 or 3 hours to get it ready.
Yeah, yeah,
But
it's crazy.
that's another strange thing, I think. Or maybe it's not strange. Again, it's all God's doing. But I went to college and I did all the things, and I was older when I got married. I was 36 when I got married, so it's good that I went to college because I don't know how I would have paid for bills and stuff. But um, I I've had a lot of jobs in my life. It took me a long time to figure out professionally what I wanted to do. And I was never happy in jobs. And no matter what, like I just always was looking for something different, something different. And I told my husband this not too long ago. I said, I've finally realized, for the most part, I do, like I said, I have a consulting company. I work part-time because I have to. Financially, we need that money. If I had my choice, I wouldn't. I said, I am happiest being a wife and a mother. And when I spend all day in the kitchen making bread and making homemade soup, I am way happier than I ever was sitting in a cubicle doing any of my jobs. And I think deep down I knew that. And that's why none of my jobs satisfied me, like, because I tried a lot of different things. I mean, most of my background is in HR, but I would work a job for a year or two and it just didn't like it. So I'd go find another one, or I'd get laid off or whatever. And it just, nothing satisfied me professionally in the workforce. But being a wife and a mother, and that being my main focus, and a home, taking care of the home and taking care of chickens and doing like that, satisfies me so much more than any job I've ever had. It's amazing. It's really, and I think we do women a disservice nowadays telling them, like, you need to aim for more than that. I mean, yes, if you have to work financially, or if you want to, that's fine. But to tell women, like, you need to be more than a mother, or you need to be more than a wife, or like, it goes against, I think, a lot of our natural woman instincts. When we try and force women that you should be in the career, on a career path, and you should be fighting your way to the top, and you should be, I don't know, that's my soapbox for our discussion. Like, I think it just really does a disservice to a lot of women, that it makes them kind of go against their natural instinct. And so I think a lot of times they are going to be unhappy,
Mhm,
I don't know
mhm.
if that makes sense, but
It very much does. But you also make a fair point that this also isn't for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Much like homesteading isn't for everybody, being stay-at-home mom isn't for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't feel comfortable, keep moving, because that's
Mm-hmm.
obviously, again, not your home. That seems to be the trend here. Finding your home in everything.
Yes.
Okay, when you look back through the journey that you've had to get here to the homestead, were there any major challenges or fears that you guys faced that you had to work through?
Well, I mean, I think our initial fear of my husband losing his job, with everything going on last year and some of that stuff, I think that was our first real big fear. But, thankfully we had a pretty quick solution for that. And, thankfully I am well educated and I have had a good career. So if push comes to shove, I can go back into the workforce and I can make the money that we need to support us if, anything ever happened that I would have to do that. I could do that. And so we do always have that option. But, I think there's always fear in change because you don't know what you're getting into. And so there was fear going into the RV life, not knowing what we were getting into. And there was fear getting out of it because we had already been in it and we had figured it out, at least for us at that point, and going into something new and, trying something that we'd never done before. There's fear in that, or you buy a house and fear that you rip off wallpaper and the whole wall is going to be covered in mold, or whatever. I mean, there's those fears that, but again, I think just trusting that God knows what he's doing, and he's not going to put you in something. He's putting you where he wants you to be for whatever reason, whether that's to face challenges or that's to have some smooth sailing. What I've found most of the time, it's not smooth sailing. That's not the way life goes, I mean, so we're not going to yearn for heaven if we have smooth sailing on earth. So I think it's just to be expected that there's going to be a lot of bumps in the road. But, I think for us at this point, our biggest challenge is just financially, being able to do what we want to do, and kind of having to take some step backs. Well, we would like to do this project, but it's just not an option for us right now. Or things like that. That's challenging. Or even things that might come up that we have to do that might be a little bit outside of where we're at financially. But, I'm trusting that God will provide. And that's kind of the nice thing about at least being a consultant is sometimes I can control how much I make, sometimes I can't. And so I just trust that when we need the money, the projects will come in, or hopefully my husband will get a nice raise this year. We'll see.
We'll see.
Hopefully it's more than like 2%. Like, gee, thanks.
Oh.
This will really help.
When inflation was like 12%.
Right. Yeah. But we've always made do. I mean, everything's always worked out. So even when the challenges come, and I'm better at this than he is. He tends to, lean more on the side of being anxious and being the worrier. And it's good that God puts opposites together, because he's the worrier and I'm kind of more the, it'll work out. And so that's what I try to remind him, even when the challenges come. Like, everything up to this point, we've been married almost 8 years. We've had a lot of different challenges, job loss and things like that. Like, it has always worked out, and it will work out. It might work out differently than we think it's going to, but it's still going to work out, and it's still going to work out for our good. And we'll just pivot and go the next direction. Right. Like in Friends, pivot.
That's right. It's pivot. Now, again, typically challenges and experiences change us. Can you pinpoint one moment along the way that, along your journey, that you did see a total life change, that this is it, this is where we're going, there's no going back?
When we sold our house, we sold our last house because the market is where it is, that most suburban houses financially are out of reach. I mean, it's not what we wanted anyway, but it was kind of like, okay, if we get out of this house at this point, you know, because we sold our house for over $100,000 more than we paid for it 2 years prior. I mean, the market just changed. We've lucked out because I bought my condo in Denver in the middle of the market climbing there. So we sold somewhat high in Denver, and we went to Arizona that wasn't growing yet. And so we bought low in Arizona, and then Arizona exploded. And so we sold high in Arizona and bought low in Texas. And then after we got here, Texas exploded. Well, when Texas, everything has exploded at this point, just from inflation and stuff. So, so we're no longer in a position where, you know, you can buy low and sell high with real estate. It's just, I mean, unless you really buy like a beater that you have to put a lot of money into, you know. So I knew when we were getting out of our cushy suburban home, like if we get out of this house, like we are going to be done with this kind of a lifestyle for the foreseeable future. So we have to really make sure like we're done living in suburbia, which I was completely fine with, because the one thing I did not like about our house in Arizona, and I did not like about our house in Texas, is when I would go in the backyard, I saw 4 other houses.
Ugh.
You know, there's people looking down into your backyard. Not that they were actually looking, but you know, if they're in their upstairs window, they can look into your yard, and I can look into their yard. And I did not like that lack of privacy in my own backyard. And there is even a couple double wides that we looked at that even on a half-acre lot, you still had a bunch of people that were still close to you that just, it's not what I wanted anymore. I want to be in my backyard, and the only person that can see me is my 85-year-old next door neighbor, who probably can't see me anyway. Oh, she's so sweet. I love Sally. She's super sweet. But I mean, like, so for me getting out of suburbia, and I didn't grow up in suburbia, you know, I grew up in the country. So to me, I was fine with it. You know, it was more my husband, like that's kind of what he was used to. Was he going to be okay, like going out of this comfort zone of his? And he's done really well with it. I mean, I think we've changed, we've done enough change finally that I think he's getting a little better with change. But, you know, that was the defining moment. I knew as soon as we're out of this house, like we're out of this lifestyle. And that was fine, because it is a rat race. It's always trying to keep up with the next person, no matter what. I mean, you know, we had our house in Arizona, and I would see people and I'm like, well, their house is bigger and nicer, and I want a bigger and nicer house. So we went into a bigger and nicer house, and it's like, there's still people with bigger, nicer houses. And the bigger it is, the more you have to clean, the more you have to repair. Like, it's not all it's cracked up to be. And how many people come over to see my big, nice house anyway? You know, I mean, who's it for? Instagram? I mean, I can make a nice corner in my double wide that's Instagram worthy, you know, I mean, like right here.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think also too, I've just gotten to the age where I just don't care anymore, because I've learned like there's always going to be people who are having more, who have more than you, and chances are they're probably less happy than you are, actually, because the more, and I try and tell my son this about money in general, the more you have, the more you want. You never have enough. Like, that's just the way it is. You adjust your lifestyle as you have more money, and you still need more. So you've got to get to a point where you just learn to be content with where you're at. And sure, it'd be nice to have a little bit extra, of course, but to keep thinking, well, I'll be happier when I get to this house, or I'll be happier when I get to this salary level or whatever, you won't be. I mean, you're chasing a tail that you're never going to catch. So I think it's important. And the one piece of advice I guess I'd give people, whatever age you're at, like, just learn to be content with where you are and accept that that might be all you ever get. And that's okay. It really is. I mean, everybody's journey is different. 99% of what we see on Instagram is fake. So trying to live your life a certain way to please people or to make people think a certain way about you it's not fulfilling. You're never going to be fulfilled that way. I mean, I could, you're never going to be fulfilled outside of Jesus. I can go on that soapbox, but it's like, you're definitely not going to be fulfilled trying to impress people on Instagram, because you can be canceled in a moment, and there's always going to be somebody better than you out there. So just find what makes you happy and do it. And who cares? Who cares if you're on Instagram wearing overalls and a flannel, like, if your kitchen's messy, do the post anyway, I mean, seriously, I just, that's the one thing I hate about social media, is it's too scripted and it's too perfect. And that's just not life. And it makes people so depressed, and it makes people so discontent with where they are. And so I try to tell my son that, like, no matter what, be content. I mean, he's only not even 6 yet, but I'm trying to put seeds in his head, because he'll see something, well, buy me that toy. I won't, and it's like, be content with what you have. You get that, you're going to see something else you want. You're still not going to be happy, And even, raising him, at this point, he wants to be a plumber. And I'm like, yes, do it. Go be a plumber. The world needs plumbers, and you can make a boatload of money. I know I just said money wasn't important, but you can be very comfortable as a plumber, And so we're trying to steer him towards less traditional, or, as you say, scripted ways. Like, he doesn't need to go to college. He doesn't need to do, he doesn't play sports. We're not going to put him in sports. He's not real athletic. I'm not sure he'd be real good anyway, but like, I see these families and their kids are always doing sports and doing music lessons, and they're just always on the go. One, I think that takes away from a kid's childhood to just always be practicing and whatever. But, two, that kid is like, I don't know, it's just too much pressure, I think. That's just my opinion. But so we're just, even with him, he's not doing a traditional childhood. He's homeschooled. He does trail life. We started him in that, which is like Boy Scouts. And that's it. I don't want to be chasing him around from practices or activities or whatever. Like, I want him to just be a little country boy, running around barefoot, climbing trees, and just enjoying it, and knowing that life doesn't have to be so complicated. It doesn't have to be a rat race of always competing and always trying to be the best and always, like, just enjoy it. I don't know. I feel like I kind of went in a circle with that.
Hey, that whole rant, I'm literally sitting here going, that's a great quote. That's a great quote. Oh, that's going to make a good reel. That's a great quote.
I mean, I think
it's so true. There's so many things that you said in there that is like nail on the head, nail on the head, because the whole scripted life. And I get people show like, this is what I show on Instagram, but this is what it really is. Great. I did that too. That's a great reel. But people still only pay attention and interact with those pages that show more and more perfect than real life, unless it's a complete basket case, because people still love train wrecks. Right? If you're a train wreck account and your kids are train wrecks and everybody's got mental health issues, blah blah blah, those accounts do really well, because people
or if you're parading around half naked all the time.
That's also what I would call a staged account.
Right.
They live scripted and staged, because, but between those two, you're either perfectly scripted or staged, or you're a complete train wreck. And that's what does well in this social media world. But the whole real life gets missed in the middle, that people are trying to either make fun of, or just can't take their eyes off, or are trying to strive for the perfection. And then where's life in the middle? And then our kids are seeing that as they get introduced to social media, and they're now trying to live up to these set of unrealistic expectations, because they live this life. Like, my kids live in our RV. They know what our RV looks like. They know that, you're stuffing things in random spots because the storage is minimal, right? But stuff is
Right.
plenty. And we're in this weird transition. So we have a lot of extra stuff right now. But, and then they'll go to Instagram or see somebody's YouTube video and their RV is perfectly staged because they're doing a tour and walkthrough. Well, we know that's not how they live, but they look at that and their young brains are going, well, mommy, why can't ours look like that?
Mm-hmm.
Why can't ours be as clean as that one? And I don't want to be, well, sorry guys, you need to clean up your toys more often. You need to wash your own dishes. You need to, right? Like, no. So it's just, or why can't we have that big of an RV? Why can't we have a really nice RV? Why can't we have a motorhome? Why can't we, right? And even we're a travel trailer. So many look at us and go, oh, you're a travel trailer family. Like that's a bad thing. And I just want to say, oh, you're an RV. End of story.
Right. Like an RV is an RV, and it's funny you bring that up because part of the reason that, like I said, we went into an RV is my husband felt like we were living more extravagantly than we should be, even though, like I said, we were not extravagant at all. But, it seemed like, okay, well, RVing is such a simple thing. We'll go into RVing and we won't feel the need to keep up. But it's almost worse, I think, in the RV community because the big accounts have the fancy RVs, or they have them professionally decorated. I mean, I know a lot of them do it themselves, but they've spent the time and they've spent the money and they've done everything to make it look a certain way that even going into RV life, there was still discontent. Like, well, my RV doesn't look as nice as that RV. And what can I do to get mine to look like that? Or we were in a fifth wheel to start, and then we moved into a toy hauler, which for us really did make sense because my husband worked from home and we needed more space. But there's always still something, then the next year's models come out and, oh, they have this feature and this is so much nicer. Or look at this cool layout. I mean, I think there's almost even more comparison in the RV world because you see it all. People give you a tour of their whole RV, whereas houses, most people aren't some people do, but most people aren't walking around giving you a whole tour of their house, and so you have more to compare to, and you feel like, well, I'm not as cool of an RVer as they are if I'm not in a renovated Airstream or in a fancy toy hauler or whatever.
And it also comes to that too, where it comes down to brands, right? If you're in this brand of RV, you're that much cooler. If you're in this brand of RV, you can be in our club. If you're in this brand of RV or this style, you can blah, blah, blah. And it's very clicky with simply what house you live in. Whereas when I lived in a house, people weren't like, oh, you live in a house by that builder? Oh. Or you can only be part of our club if you live in this builder's house. What?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong. Canada and the US is very different because you guys have like HOAs and weird housing communities and stuff. But so that may be already clubbish. Maybe that's where it comes from. I don't know. But it's just, it just blew my mind when people are like, oh, you're in a grand design. Wow. And they get, very hoity-toity about it. I'm like, yeah, we're in a grand design Imagine. Oh, you're in an Imagine.
You're in a bumper pole.
Hold on. We were cool a second ago, and when I said we were grand design, but then I'm not cool because it's just a lowly Imagine. Like it boggles my mind. Whereas I'm just happy to have a house to live in right now. So.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's a nice, refreshing thing about living in a double wide. Like, I mean, we're in a trailer. We're in a double trailer basically, and we live by other trailers, and we do have the nicest trailer on the street. Well, Sally's is pretty nice too, actually, but us and Sally, like, and the one next to her, they're pretty nice. You keep going down that street and there's some not so nice ones, so I guess we're still like at the top of the chain in the trailer neighborhood, but it's like
neighborhood.
But it's like, who cares? I mean, who cares whether we're in a double wide or we're in a house? I can make anywhere I live beautiful, I feel, and as long as it feels like home and as long as we're comfortable, that's all that matters. It does not matter if you're in some fancy house or a fancy RV or whatever. Like, it's just home. It's a place you live.
Yeah.
You know, and I've been reading my son the Little House on the Prairie books, and you know, and it gives me that yearning for simpler times. And I know things weren't simpler back then. They had different issues. But things were so different back then, you know. I mean, they just built their house wherever out of logs, and everybody built them out of logs, you know. And it was just so simple, and it was like, we have a roof over our head, that's all we need. And I don't know at what point, you know, society, and I am sure there were people back then, the wealthy people, that probably compared, but there wasn't the social media and stuff to see it, you know. And so I think that's probably the biggest disservice social media has done for us, is really hit home that comparison game where people have just cannot learn to be content with what they have and where they're at. And it's just always just striving to meet some picture perfect thing that who even decided like this is what you should strive for, you know? I mean, well, that's a rabbit hole we could go down for a long time.
Say, like, well, we kind of know where this all started.
I mean, the goal used to be land, you know. It used to be, how much land can you go out and live on, you know? And now it's, how big of a house can I put on a tiniest plot of land in a neighborhood where I can stick my arm out the window and literally touch my neighbor's house. But I've got a 4,000 square foot house, so
yeah,
that's awesome. You know, like that just does not make sense to me. And I don't know if I'm just wired differently, or if this is, I mean, I think this is the way it's supposed to be. And it's just media that has just changed and shaped our brains to think that we should be living a different way than, you know, God didn't create us to live on top of each other, I don't think, in, you know, in mega mansions on tiny plots of land.
Well, if you want to go back to 98, circa 98, MTV Cribs. I blame Cribs.
I should put
once they started showing what was inside those fridges, you know, it was all downhill from there.
I should have them come do my 1998 crib. Except it doesn't look as bad now because I got all the wallpaper down.
But do you remember, like, that's almost where it started, because that was before House Hunters, right? Like, Cribs was almost the original sneak peek into people's homes, and not just any people's homes, it was celebrity homes.
Right.
So that almost started, well, and then that makes me think of like homes of the rich and famous, right? That are the lives of the rich and famous. Right. And that put that big giant diamond carrot in front of people's faces to go, ooh, that's what I need. And that set the standard. And then you started seeing all the housing shows come behind, and all the career things come behind, and all the statuses of clothing, right? That's when clothing, I want to say it was like in the 80s sometime, is where brand labels, late 80s, early 90s, when brand labels really became a thing. And that again creates status, because I went to a very, very wealthy high school in our area, and it was booming at the time. It was a very overfilled high school. So there was so many kids. For our area, it was a lot. It was not like Texas high school a lot, but it was a lot for our area. And when we went to school, it was Tommy Hilfiger and Calvin Klein jeans were like all the rage. And well, my mom was single mom of 6 kids. I wasn't getting those. So I got the Byway jeans. Canadians, shout out to Byway. So I was getting the Byway jeans, which is like worse than Kmart. And that's just what I got. So I would cover the brand on the, you know, the patch on the back of your jeans. I would cover that with my shirt, because luckily at least bigger shirts were kind of cool at the time, so that nobody would see it, because everybody was looking for that brand label. And if you had the brand label, the red, white, and blue, or the CK on your jeans, you could be part of the cool club. And if you didn't get invited. And I feel like it's just branched out in so many ways post high school, and as the years have gone, because this is like 20 plus years now ago, that it's still the same thing, and it's still a status thing, right? And it's still a brand thing, and it's still who's got the latest and greatest and the right colors and the right matching, and what shoes are you wearing, and how's your hair, and how's your makeup, how are you presented, how big's your ring? Oh, don't even get me started on diamond rings.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like it's all of those, that it's everything that people choose is a status.
Mm-hmm.
And the more social media grows, the bigger the drive for becoming status matters. And I think a lot of us, I don't even want to say millennial, but like the weird Xennial kids, us weirdos who are like part of the Gen X, but not totally Gen X, but
Mm-hmm.
millennial, but not totally millennial, like the early 80s babies, we hit that section of like, we were there for all the Gen X stuff. We're probably all kids of boomers, that we were there for the no internet. We were there for the childhood that was free, and we were out till the lights came on, and we didn't have cell phones, we didn't have internet. We were growing up as the internet came out. That I think we're almost striving to get back to those roots, and I feel like that's
Mm-hmm.
why so many of our generation are like, no, you know what? I just want to either off grid. I want to travel RV style. I want to homestead in the middle of nowhere. I want to get off. I want to disconnect. And I think that's what so many of us are striving for, because we remember what it was like to not have this constant connection and this constant comparison game in your face all the time.
Mm-hmm.
That was a really long rant for your podcast.
No, no, I agree, because that is how I feel. The older I get and the more technology develops and life gets crazy, like it makes me long for the olden days, so to speak. I'm like the 80s, and I know the 80s had their problems and whatever, but like it was still, and I was a kid, so of course it was a simpler time, but it was a time of ignorance. You didn't know what was going on in the world every second of the day. You didn't have to worry about, as a kid being 2 or 3 miles from home on your bike, because you had no idea that people were, you didn't really know about kidnappings and stuff. And
No.
I don't think that there was as much back then, because you didn't have the internet and you didn't have ways for people to traffic and the things they can do now.
Yeah.
So I don't think some crimes were as big back then as they are now.
Yeah.
But you didn't know about them, and so you had that carefree feeling of not having, there was no point of my driveway that I couldn't go down if my parents were inside the house,
Yeah.
Not that like an Amish person was going to kidnap me, but still, there are other people in the town besides Amish people. But, after that little girl in Texas got kidnapped and killed by that FedEx driver or whatever, that's when we, had to pull my son aside and say, listen, if somebody's delivering something at the end of the driveway, do not go down there.
Yeah.
And if we're not out here, you cannot go past this part when we have a gate at the end of our driveway, so it's not like somebody could get him that easily, but it's still like, this is the point in our driveway where we feel comfortable you being, without us outside. That's not something I had to deal with as a kid. I rode my bike miles away from home in the middle of Amish country where there weren't even houses or anything. So, and it was never a thought to my parents or to me, like, this might not be safe. But would I let my son do that now? Heck no. Even if he was 10, I wouldn't let him just go off and ride his bike out in the neighborhood, having no idea where he's going or who's going to be around. Like, you just can't trust it anymore. And it's sad. And so I think that does, those of us who can remember that kind of a life, I think it does really make us yearn for getting back to that, and how much simpler and different it was. I don't want to say it was easier, because life's never easy, but it was just, there were different stresses. And I told my mom that even with reading Little House on the Prairie, I said, I would have rather lived back then. Yes, life was hard, but it was different hard. Yeah. It was more like physical hard than the mental that we deal with now, having the access to information that we're constantly having access to. Like, that is just such a load for our brains. God didn't design us for that. No. So it is just, it's hard to deal with that sometimes. And I would rather be stuck in the middle of South Dakota in a 7-month blizzard with no coal and no food than to have to deal with the internet most of the time.
Yeah. 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 And it is.
I,
It's such a mental and emotional overload
mm,
that none of us, we were not designed to be a global community. And this is making us so global and accessible to everything at the touch of a button. And we were not meant to be that way at
mhm,
all.
yeah.
But also another rabbit hole.
There's lots of ones we can go down.
All right, let's take a full switch here.
Okay.
You did you did touch on a little bit way back about your husband coming around to the change of all of this. How has this move between all these different lifestyles and again ending here at the farm at the homestead impacted your marriage?
Um, so I mean, now I would say, and I mean, I know you've been married for a long time, and so I mean, every year of marriage has its own challenges, and I think in some ways marriage gets easier the longer you've been married. In some ways, I think it's harder the longer you've been married. And so we're right, between that seventh and eighth year, which is like the seven-year itch anyway that they say, so to speak.
Yeah.
But honestly, I would say year 7 was probably our hardest because we had so much change. But now, and we argued a lot in the RV just because you're just on top of each other all the time. It's so easy to get annoyed with somebody when everybody's in their space and nobody can go anywhere to get their own space and stuff, and just the stress of it, because like I said, it just wasn't a very good fit for us. But being here, I think, has been great for our marriage. It's been good for our family. I think more so what has helped our marriage the most recently is me taking a step back, and I'll probably rile a lot of feminist feathers here, but me learning to be more submissive in the biblical sense. It's something I've done a lot of studying on and a lot of research, so to speak, on, and me stepping back and me not trying to control everything, even though it's my nature. And he would allow me to do that because it's not in his nature to make major decisions. But me finally stepping back and saying, this is your decision, and it kind of started with the RV because that was his idea. And I was not on board at first. And it's funny because he's the one that ended up hating it. But, I stepped back and said, if this is what you feel is best for us, then this is what we'll do, and then it was kind of on him when it didn't work out. I don't want to say it was on him, but like he knew, like, I made this decision. It wasn't a good fit, even though it was good for our family. And then when he was like, we need to get back into a house. And so I said, okay, then let's start doing what we need to do that. So even just in general, me stepping back and allowing him to be the major decision maker, and not that he doesn't take my input, or things like that, but me ultimately saying, and it's hard for me, it very much goes against my nature to say, it's your final, you have the decision. This is what I think, but you're the one who has to make the decision. I think that has done more to help our marriage than anything because we're not conflicting. There's less conflict because I say what I feel and then I step back, and it's hard and I have to swallow my pride a lot of times, but I just let him take the reins and he makes the decisions, and he kind of guides us. And that has really been the best thing for our marriage, because before it was always who's going to win, basically, whose idea or opinion or whatever. And now it's like, okay. And then there's a lot of times, I give my input and that's the direction we go, he based on my input. And then there's times that it isn't. So I know it's hard for women to hear that they should take a step back and let their husband do the leading and the directing, but it has been, and it's taken a load of stress off me because I'm not the one that has to make all the decisions anymore and feel like, what if I make this decision wrong, or, whatever, if, it's taken a huge load off me to take that step back and say, that's your department. I'll support you either way. Even if I don't agree with the decision that's made. I think that's been the best thing for our marriage. but also having more than 400 square feet to live in.
That definitely helps. Oh my goodness. That's great. That's great. And it is. It's something that some are all on board for, I guess I don't want to say it's being labeled as the Proverbs 31 wife, but that is definitely a hot trend right now, but that's a whole other topic. But just being the biblically submissive, not literally submissive. There is a big difference for those who are
a huge
not
difference.
biblical. But for those who are not biblical, there is a big difference. So it's letting your husband take the lead and be the leader that a husband is meant to be a leader that a man is meant to be. But talking about gender roles, we all know there are gender roles. If you don't agree, you probably shouldn't be listening to this, but there are specific roles, just like everything in creation. A male role has a different role than a female role in every situation. And humans are no different, that men are meant to be leaders and women, for humans, are meant to follow behind, not to follow and pick up everything after him and, let him not care, but to make the major decisions, to be the main biblical teacher of the household. This is something that's new to me because I thought it was crazy. You could have asked me 2 years ago. Here comes a hot topic right here. You could have asked me 2 years ago, can women be pastors? And I would have said, oh, yes, equal rights, go women. That's fantastic. Now I would be, nope, I'm out of this church if you believe that.
Same for us. I mean, yeah.
Right? Because that's exactly it. We can teach each other, we can teach our children, but we are not meant to be the big faith leaders, the big leaders of the household. That's not our job. That's also not what we're really good at either. As much as we want to claim we are not.
I think deep down, like I said, even like with my career, I chased it, the dangling carrot because it's what I was told I should be doing. And I think even in that sense, like, it's like, well, equal rights, there should be women pastors. And so, they chase it thinking, well, this is what I should be doing. But I don't think deep down it's fulfilling, because it goes against nature and it goes against God's design. And anytime we're going against nature and God's design, it is not going to sit well in our soul.
No, I agree. And that was a hard one because we had a wonderful female pastor during a transition at our church, and she was amazing. But should she have been? No. But was she lovely? Yes. That's nothing against her character. This is just strictly about roles. It doesn't mean you're a bad person.
Right.
But again, there are roles. So that's amazing that you're learning. And I talked to another friend of mine who, she is very, very much a dominant person. And she too is learning to let her husband lead. That sounds very belittling as well, but she's learning to have her husband take the lead. Because she knows, digging more as well and learning more biblically, that this is what the roles are meant to be. And it's been interesting to see that dynamic change in their relationship too. So yeah, this is good. Okay. So marriage. So how has this journey changed you, and how do you see this going for your family going forward?
I would say that it has helped me, again, learn to be content with where I am. Just knowing we have a home, we have land, it's not a lot of land, but it's more than a lot of people have. And it's what a lot of people want. So, it's not big and fancy, but it's perfect for us at this point. And, this is the most peaceful place I've ever lived. There's not a lot of outside noise. I mean, there's some, it's not like we're out on 300 acres, but outside of the suburbs in the city, like, it is super peaceful out here, except we have one house down the street that has like 12 dogs that live outside, but that's a different story. Except for when the dogs are barking. The rest of the time, like, it's quiet. There's a herd of like 19, 20 deer. that live in that empty property behind us, and that are always, in our yard, and, always around. And it's just very peaceful living here. And so, I feel like I've done enough. I've lived in a city, downtown. I lived in downtown Denver at one point. I've lived in suburbs. I've lived in small houses, big houses. Like I've lived the RV. I feel like I've tried pretty much everything there is to try, except like off-grid life. That I enjoy being here, and this is where I feel the most content. So it's just and I've learned too, with all that change, like no matter what you change to, you still feel like there's something different that you should be doing or you want to be doing. You just got to be content with where you are. And and learn to appreciate what you have, because it can all disappear in a moment. I mean, life is fleeting. We know that, for many reasons, and situations are fleeting. And so enjoy what you have while you have it, and not always be looking for what's that next step. Where's that's what I kind of always felt like, in the suburbs. It's like, okay, well, I'm in this house, but I'd really rather be in this house, kind of thing. And I don't feel that way anymore. I mean, would I love to have more land? Probably, but I don't know who would take care of it. We wouldn't have time to take care of it. So having more, if we had woods or something, I guess it wouldn't be a big deal. But, we have exactly what we need right now, and exactly what we can manage, without feeling overwhelmed. I wouldn't want to live on 20 acres and feel overwhelmed every day. That wouldn't be enjoyable either. So, what you have is what you need to have at that point, and just learn to work with what you have and enjoy it, and not be striving, because it's a rat race that you never win.
Yep. Never win, because it's never ending.
Right. There's always something bigger and better to chase.
So through all of this, you've probably experienced some pretty high highs and some pretty low lows. Let's walk through those. Let's start with the lows. What has been your lowest low, trying to figure out where you're supposed to be?
I don't know. I feel like I deal with things pretty well. That wasn't always the case when I was younger. But I feel like the last 10 years or so, even when things, like I said, there was at one point, my son was 5 or 6 months old, I think, and I had quit working, and my husband lost his job. This is when we were still in Arizona. And it's like, okay, what are we going to do? Like, I mean, even when that happened, like, I didn't freak out. I didn't get upset about it. Thankfully, I was able to find a part-time job that actually provided pretty well for us until he got a job. But like, I just don't let things really get me down much. Like, like I said, when we were selling our house, the first buyer fell through the day before closing. The whole deal fell through, and here we are. We're now committed to paying for this RV. We're living in the RV. We had moved out of the house because we thought, that we were closing on the house. And now all of a sudden we have to put the house back on the market. And are we going to have a house payment on top of all the RV expenses, and that kind of stuff. I mean, that was kind of freaky for sure, but I didn't let it get me down. I think what helps is the same thing happened to us in Arizona. When we sold our house in Arizona, the day before closing, the deal fell through. And we were already out here in Texas. We had already, because my husband had started his job. So we were already out here, and it's like, it just happens every time. I'm just used to it now. But, with our house here, when it fell through, and it was like, now what are we going to do? And somebody at church actually asked us, they're like, were you just going to move back into your house? And we're like, no, I mean, like, we're doing this RV thing. Like, we're committed to this, and I was like, it'll all work out. And we actually ended up selling the house for a lot more than we would have sold it the first time. So it worked out. Oh. It worked out really well for us at that point. Kind of. There were I won't go into some of the other things that didn't work out so well because we took a gamble, but, yeah. I try and look at the lows as, this isn't going to be as low as I think it is in hindsight. Yeah. Like I said, God always takes us through things. He's got our best interests in mind. So it may feel like, like life is ending or whatever, like how are we going to get through this challenge? But there's always a way, and it always works itself out. And
Yeah.
usually I've found it does work itself. In hindsight, it works itself out better than you expected it to work out. Both times with our houses, when the first deal fell through, we sold our house for more the second time. So, um, to me, the lows help you appreciate the highs. You know, I think another low I'll say another low was probably when after we bought this house and we moved in, and we really started realizing how much work was going to be involved. And we realized the garage was infected with termites.
Oh no.
And the house had termites. I don't know why we didn't the garage wouldn't have had a termite inspection anyway, because it's a separate property. I don't know why we didn't have one on the house. Somehow that slipped through the cracks. But yeah, so, we moved in, and it's like all of a sudden now we're chunking down thousands of dollars to have termite treatments done. And there's a little room attached to our garage that I was going to make a school room for little man and I to do schooling in, and for me to just kind of have a space to go and just have my own peaceful retreat kind of thing. And we had to tear up the floor of that room because of the termites. And so that room has no floor in it. And so I think just some initial disappointments like that. Like, we bought this house and I had this vision. Okay, I'm going to do this with this room, and I'm going to do this with this room. And then we get into it and other things pop up. And it's like, now we don't have the budget to do, I had to change my plan in the kitchen because we had a much lower budget than initially. And just things like that, they're all frivolous things. I mean, it's nothing life threatening or anything like that, but they're disappointments, but it's just kind of rolling through them and still realizing like, hey, things were getting bad in the RV for us, just mentally and everything. Like, we're out of that now, now we're in this, and yes, there's still challenges, but we're still in a better place than we were when we were there. So just keep your chin up and keep going. I mean, I think it helps when you have kids because you've got to kind of put on a happy face. I mean, I think it's okay to let them see that there are struggles, but I don't want him to think that these things, that 3 or 4 months from now are really not going to be this huge catastrophe. I don't think it's good to have him see us like react so big to things that really in the long run are not a big deal, like to just kind of learn to roll with the punches. And yeah, this is disappointing, but we have this and we can do this instead, kind of thing. So that really helps me, I think, is trying to keep positive for him so that he learns to not go through life and freak out over everything that happens.
That's so true. Because a lot of kids can't handle anything right now. Yeah. Okay. So then on the flip side, what was your highest high? What was the best thing that happened during all this change?
Looking around and realizing like we have a homestead, and it doesn't look like anybody else's homestead, and it doesn't look like what we want it to look like someday, but we have it, and we've got a few chickens in the backyard, and I've learned to make my bread, and I'm learning to do some other things. We're on the journey we want to be on, and we've kind of gotten where we wanted to get to at this point. And so I think that's probably, the best part of it is we had a goal, we had to change it a little bit, but we're still, we're in our double wide with our wraparound porch on acreage, less acreage than we had hoped, but we still have it, and so the thing we kind of joked about and kind of hoped for, we have it now. So what is there not to be happy about in that? Even if it is being eaten by termites.
And you got that first egg.
Right. Yes.
That was a big celebratory day.
That was, I know. My mom was like, she laughed so hard at that video. She's like, I've never seen somebody get excited over one egg. And I was like, it was so exciting. Now I get mad when I don't get eggs, or they lay them and they break them. And I'm like, do not do that. It'll be exciting when we get the first duck egg for sure. My husband can't eat chicken eggs. That's why we need ducks. He
Okay.
has to eat the duck eggs. But thankfully, I will give a shout out to our friend who sold us the male ducks on accident. The last time I saw her, she gave me like 12.5 duck eggs. She said she's been collecting them. She won't let her kids eat them because she feels so badly that she sold us
Oh,
male ducks. So she's
oh
been giving us
no.
eggs. So we have gotten some duck eggs for him. But that's why, in case anybody's wondering why we have chickens and ducks in the middle of our acre, the duck eggs are for him. But yeah, I mean, that's what I've wanted for a while, and now I have it. So what isn't there to be, happy about?
Yeah. That's awesome. The whole purpose of this podcast is to inspire others, because I'm sure there's somebody out there listening who either lives in suburbia or lives in an RV and really wants to do a homestead. What would you say to inspire them to just get out there and do it?
I mean, I would say just do it. Life is short, but also stay within your means. I think we as a society have a big problem with going outside of our means to try to accomplish what we want. And it's just dumb. I mean, in my past, I've gotten myself in a lot of financial debt, and I've made some really, really bad decisions financially, trying to keep up with people and doing whatever. You can't even enjoy what you have if you know, like, I'm broke or I can't pay for, what it is that I have. So I think it's sitting down and figuring out, what do I want and what is realistic, and then doing what you need to do to get to that realistic point, but not putting yourself in massive amounts of debt over it. I mean, obviously, you're going to have a mortgage payment or whatever, but not going outside your means to accomplish whatever it is that you want. And if it's not in the cards right now, and as hard as that is to accept, like, just knowing, okay, this isn't going to happen right now, but I know that when it does, it's probably actually going to be better than I thought it was going to be, because when we were looking, like I said, when we looked at different properties and stuff, this was the best one by far, that we found. And at first we thought it was unattainable for us. We thought we were going to have to settle for one of the other ones that we had found. And ultimately we didn't have to, thankfully. So, I think if you're trusting in God and letting him lead you, in your life, and trusting that his will is always perfect and it's going to work out for you, one, you have to be patient, and two, you have to just be realistic about what that's going to look like for you. And it's not going to look like you said, like anybody else. Your journey is not going to look like anybody else's journey. And I follow all these homestead accounts on Instagram, that have 30 chickens free ranging in their backyard, and they're getting all these beautiful, colorful eggs. And, I'm lucky if I get my one pink and brown egg every day. And we can't free range our chickens because we have too many predators, and the dogs would probably get them. I mean, like, it just, there's just always something that you're going to see online that, oh, I want that. And then you realize, like, that's just not realistic for me, So, I think it's good to have things to work towards, goals and things like that. But I also don't think we should, lose the forest for the trees kind of thing. Don't be so set on striving to reach somewhere you haven't gotten that you just stop living where you are. And just be content with that. But, yes, push yourself and find ways to try and make what you want happen. But at the end of the day, if it doesn't, then just be content with where you're at.
Yeah.
And who cares what anybody else thinks? I mean, if you got to live in a double wide to make it happen, go live in a double wide. There's some nice double wides out there.
Yep.
I don't know why it's cool to live in an RV, but not cool to live in just a regular trailer. I mean, just because it doesn't have wheels on it. I don't know. It's kind of weird to me that, like, trailers get this such. I mean, there are a lot of trashy trailers. I will, but there's a lot of trashy houses too. And nobody's like, oh, that's, your house trash. It's always just trailer trash, I mean, like,
it's so true.
There's some really nice trailers out there. Like, who cares? Who cares what you're living in? If you take care of it, it's just, again, with the status, like, and the brands and the labels, like, who cares what anybody else thinks? Who
cares? Just go for it, but stay within your means.
Yes, stay within your means. Don't, I think that's part of the problem we got ourselves into with the last house that we were in was because we wanted a bigger suburban house. You know, we stretched ourselves to the limit on our budget. And, you know, had we stayed in that house and not gone into the RV, with the property tax increase that Texas had last year, we probably actually would have been pushed out of that house because our mortgage payment would have gone up like over $300 a month, you know? Wow. So we, you know, you don't want to ever put yourself in a position where if something changes like that, like now all of a sudden you're going to lose everything, you know? So, you know, I think that was one lesson learned from that. And one thing I tried to make sure when we were looking here that, like, you know, if something goes up a little bit, inflation, you know, whatever, like, don't put yourself in a position to get what you think you want that it can all just be taken away from you if, you know, a few variables change. You've got to make sure you're putting yourself in a position where you can handle the ups and downs of things, because it's not worth it.
I got no words after that, because that's great.
That's all there is to it.
That's it. Okay, so we're going to wrap this up. The last thing is, can you please so if anybody's looking for you, where can they find you to connect with you?
They can find me on Instagram at Crunchy Homestead Mama. I don't really like that name, but I don't know what to change it to. And I've already changed it a couple times. So we're just sticking with that for now.
We're going with it.
We're going with it.
You'll have a name for your farm at some point, so you can give it that name, maybe.
Yeah. We'll probably do that at some point.
Okay.
But yes, that's where you can find me.
Okay, perfect. So I will add that to the show notes. So if you want to get a hold of Brenda, you can click on the links below. And I appreciate this conversation. This has been amazing. I really appreciate this conversation. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It was fun.
Thank you for listening. If you're enjoying these stories, please leave us a review, as it helps our podcast reach more listeners. For more information about this podcast, with show notes, links, and more, please go to our website, moresunsetsplease.com. While you're there, let's get connected. We post often on our Instagram and Facebook and share weekly updates through email. Make sure you join the list. But we want to hear from you. If you know of someone with a great story, send an email to info@moresunsetsplease.com and I'll be sure to get back to you. Until next time, keep taking time to enjoy more sunsets, please.